Hello everyone, welcome to the Leesburg Public Library Show. My name is Tom Wilcox. I'm an adult services librarian here at the library, and I am here with Ms. Gloria Ann Foz, and we're going to talk about a wonderful treasure in Leesburg called the Mote-Morris house, and next month we're going to have a wonderful program, so if you want to learn more about the house, so while we answer some questions, Gloria Ann is going to show some things that are related to the house for everyone. So let's start. It says, well, Gloria Ann, can you tell us a little bit more about the Mote-Morris house and the families named who actually lived there?
I'd be glad to do that. Our historic Mote-Morris house is probably the only house in Leesburg that has had very little change from the time it was built, except for its move to a different location. Only 3 families have lived in the house in the 98 years after it was built, the first 98 years. Shall I go on?
Okay, well, you know what, we can go into when it was built and what style it is.
The house was built in 1892 for Edward and Lucretia Mote. And more about Mr. Mote if you come visit the house on the second Saturday of any month. The house was of late Victorian Revival architecture. And it's an interesting combination of styles because it has a 4-story turret and a 2-story bay on the east side of the house. And my favorite room is the second floor one with the bay window. It is just gorgeous. The house had clapboard siding and shingle siding and a roof of cedar shake. It has the slender turret and a full-width 1-story entrance porch. In other words, the porch goes all around the front of the house.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you though, a house like that, is it on any historical registers of any kind?
Yes, it is. It was added to the National Historic Register of Historic Places in December of 1974 by the Morris family who was living there.
Okay, that's great. But, well, you know, we actually mentioned that the house was moved, so can you talk to us a little bit about why that had to be done and some of the things that happened with it?
Oh, yes. In my favorite story, maybe, in 1988, the house was sold to the Methodist Church next door, and they wanted to build an education building and additional parking in their lots. So the church offered the house to whomever would move it, and that's a pretty big proposition. But anyway, otherwise they were going to demolish it. So due to the public concern over the pending demolishment of the house, the city of Leesburg became involved. And at the suggestion of the commission, the Mote-Morris House Preservation Steering Committee was formed. This committee, comprised of various community leaders, formulated an overall plan to save the house, including the selection of the relocation site, the suggested use for the house following the restoration, and an outline of revenue sources to finance the project. As you know, it would cost a lot. After much to-do, the house was moved by T.A. Youngblood and Sons, and it was moved from 1021 West Main Street to 1195 West Magnolia on September 1st, 1990. It took most of the day. I'll go on. The City Commission ultimately agreed to pay for the relocation expenses if the community could raise the funds to purchase the lot. Within a 6-month period, mind you. This arrangement was devised as a means to gauge the community's support for the project. The $95,000 needed for the relocation site was collected in an overwhelming display of support and involvement by the residents of Leesburg.
All right. Okay, but anything else?
Yes. The Citizens National Bank was the depository for the Mote-Morris Preservation Fund, and no longer in business. Anyway, Jim Hill, he and his wife were very much a part of the steering committee, told me they had a run for the house. They also had a community cookout at Fountain Lake. And his wife said the most successful fundraiser was a gala auction at the Howey Mansion in Howey in the Hills. Several artists made renderings of the house, which were sold, and that was an additional source of income. Other fundraisers included a Mote-Morris house tour, a 5K run, barbecues, Leesburg J.C.'s Bowling Fund, and lastly, a production of Oklahoma by the Mill and Patch Theater.
Okay, good. And I have a good question for you. Can you tell us any setbacks? I mean, it looked like the move happened in one day, but something must have happened that day that really sort of made things a little strange.
Well, that day, no. It was a week late. The move was a week late, I understand. I wasn't here, you know, so I didn't have a perspective on that. But there was a lot of grumblings by a lot of the citizens about the city being involved in this. But anyway, the house was given to the city. It's a city property, and so it was moved. And it seems as if it's a perfect spot for the house. It just fit in so perfectly.
I can understand, though, the reservations, because remember, 1990 was a recession year.
Oh, yes. And then there were other things that many citizens thought would have been better served by using the money for that.
Yeah,
but anyway, the move came about, and as of right now, we're very glad because it's such a precious part of our community.
Great. Now, when the house was moved, was the site actually excavated before the church built its addition?
Oh, yes. A professional archaeological consultant was brought in, and about 65 students from Oak Park Middle School participated in the dig. And one of them was Carol Anderson's son. And he still talks a bit about it. And they had to prepare a paper, of course, being that they were still in school, you know.
Yeah.
And it was called the Mote-Morris Archaeological Education Project, a look into Leesburg's past. And it was quite a long paper, and it has maps, it has pictures of the artifacts, and a narrative, of course. So the students remember it still.
Okay. But, you know, moving on, basically how, you know, we discussed all the fundraising to actually make the move and get the lot and everything. But, you know, how is the house supported currently?
Well, the house is the property of the city, and it's totally maintained by city funds and rental fees. But the rental fees average only about $4,500 a year. So there's not a lot in rental fees. The more people who rent the house, of course, the more income there will be. And I really think that it's a fine place to rent for various activities of a personal nature.
Okay. But now, I imagine that the public, if they wanted to, could donate to the house. How could they do that?
Oh, yes. Well, I am, since we started talking about this, quite interested in getting some work done on the house. And the city has a restricted account to receive donations so that it is clearly segregated from all other funds. Any donations to the city are tax deductible too, you know. So you send your check payable to the city of Leesburg with Mote-Morris Fund in the memo, and then send it to Leesburg Heritage Society, 111 South 6th Street, and that's Leesburg 34748.
Okay.
And the city will send a receipt if it's requested. Otherwise, your check would be your receipt.
All right, that sounds good. But, well, let's see. Now where does the Heritage Museum fit in with the Mote-Morris house?
Well, Leesburg Heritage Society was organized in 1976 during bicentennial of our nation, of course, and our objectives are to preserve the past for the benefit of the future. And so we work with the city to maintain the history of the city. And we have a fine museum there at 111 South 6th Street, and we have many different artifacts from past years and more modern years. We have files on families and businesses and schools and school yearbooks and all sorts of things. So, you know, I encourage our citizens to come in and visit us and see what we have.
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask you, if someone came, let's say someone who's never actually been there before, I mean, how do they experience the house?
Well, when they come to visit us, first thing I try to do, and all of the docents do it a little differently. Mm-hmm. I try to start with a little history of the city and then work down to when the house was built and then what we have in the house, and we mm-hmm. show what's in the house and various features of the house. Mm-hmm. And then we walk through the house with them and explain each room and that kind of thing.
Okay, but now, you know, about the volunteers, I mean, how many do you generally have available, and how do you recruit them?
Well, the recruiting hasn't been going very well. I have several faithful people. I have one man who is 87 who comes in and spends 4 hours every month. He arrives a little bit early and sweeps up all the bugs. And then I have another person who spends 4 hours there. Plus, I'm always there for 4 hours to make sure everything's okay, you know? Mm-hmm. And then I have people come in for 2-hour stints.
Okay.
And I have tried, we had an article in the newspaper during Bike Fest about Mote-Morris house needs volunteers to help with tours. Mm-hmm. I had one phone call. I was very disappointed. Mm-hmm. Now, our docents, they represent the house, and if somebody volunteers to be a docent, then they need to be aware, you know, when they're in the community, mm-hmm. how they represent the house, and they encourage people to come visit the house and tell them it's for rent, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You can spend 2 hours once a month giving tours at the house. That's mm-hmm. all that's required. But they do need to be able to climb stairs because the house is grandfathered in, so they need to be flexible, interested in working with people of all age groups and backgrounds, and willing to learn and be dependable. You know, if I expect somebody there, if they don't show up, then I'm in a world of hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse that expression. But they receive training and all the history of the house.
Yeah.
And then they will follow the veteran presenters to learn what they need to learn. And they don't have to be a member of the Heritage Society.
Okay. But anyway, I was going to ask you, how can the public learn more about the house?
Well, they can come to the museum. Or they can visit the house on the second Saturday of the month mm-hmm. between 10 and 2. They can come to the museum and they can learn a lot about the house there. They go to our webpage, LeesburgHeritageSociety.com, mm-hmm. all one word. Or they can go to the city site, which is, I won't read it here, but if you Google Mote House, Leesburg, Florida, it'll come up.
Okay, sounds good enough. But now, you know, we were going to ask, because we were talking about the volunteers, how would you like to expand the tour schedule?
I'd like to go back to the twice a month at the very least.
Yeah.
And we kind of skipped over how this all began.
Okay.
The Heritage Society requested the city to find us a curator, so they eventually hired Rick Reed. And that was in November of 2003. Mm-hmm. And he said himself, he's told me that opening the house to the public was an early goal after he was hired. Mm-hmm. And so they decided on twice a month because the house was used a couple times a month for weddings.
Right.
So after he left the city employ, which was in 2008, mm-hmm. summer of 2008, the Heritage Society decided to continue with the twice a month openings. Mm-hmm. Some of our ladies fell away, and we had to go back to once a month. Mm-hmm. And I would love to see it open twice a month.
Yeah, that's something. But anyway, I have a good question. Has anyone asked if there was a secret room or if the house was haunted?
No, well, yes. The outstanding thing about the house is that there's a closet in almost every room, so there are no secret rooms because every bit of space is used by closets. But the neighborhood children tell me they see something up in the tower every once in a while. And I have 3 neighborhood children who come by, and they're very well-behaved children, and sometimes they even go on the tours and tell me what I forgot to say.
Oh yeah, as anyone who has ever been on stage with a child can tell you, they learn the script from A to Z.
Yes, indeed. They could give the tours.
But, well, you know, when you do give a tour, what kind of feedback do you generally get?
Oh, everybody is usually excited. It doesn't matter which tour guide helps them. They're always excited afterwards. You know, most of my guides know a lot about the house and about the city. And oftentimes there's people that we know that come by to have a tour, and they're always very pleased.
That's good. But I was going to ask you, what do you like most about the house?
Well, it's a hard question. It possesses, and I copied this from something, but possesses significant historic and architectural qualities. And as a result of unprecedented community support, the house was retained to symbolize the establishment of Leesburg. The restoration preserved an important landmark for the state of Florida and for Leesburg, while providing a functional facility for the residents of Leesburg. Now, there's some of the features that I like are the tower, of course, and the bay windows, and that 1 bedroom on the 2nd floor, and the 2nd floor porches.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're very nice, and I'll tell you, the tower is way cool. I know, I loved it up there. Anyway, oh, well, I think we already covered that. You said that you do rent out for special events, so, you know, we don't have to go through that. But anyway, can you tell us a little bit about the program, about the house you're going to do, you know, next month? And at the end of this, I'll tell everyone.
May I quote the rental prices?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay, the house is available for rent for personal activities. And it's, you know, weddings and parties and anniversaries and all that sort of thing. So the house and the gazebo are considered a package.
Okay.
So if you rent the house, it's $50 an hour, but you have to rent for 2 hours.
Okay.
Which is quite reasonable, I'm told. I haven't rented a facility, I don't know. But for non-residents, it's $60 an hour, which is not bad either. The gazebo is $35 an hour and $45 for non-residents. And the package together, you save $15 an hour by renting the house and the gazebo together. So it's $70 or $80 for non-residents.
All right.
So, and then, you know, you have to clean up after yourself. There is a modern kitchen for you to bring in covered dishes to serve. Or I think you can probably have your own caterer come in with your stuff that you need to serve.
Okay, yeah, that could be done. But, so anyway, okay, well, you know, why don't you show us a few of the things that are here that you'll probably, you know, that are with the house.
Well, in the museum, we have, you know, several things. Of course, we have the booklet that was done by the children. We have this other booklet that was prepared for the designer showcase, and it lists the designers and the various rooms and has a map of the house. And then it does have some ads, which paid for the booklet. Back in these days, it was very popular to sell ads. It still is, I suppose. This is a shingle from the house. We have a cedar shake roof. And a steep pitch is something I marvel at because Mr. Mote came from the north, and so I think he might have brought that idea with him.
Oh yeah, it'd be second nature to somebody from up north, Delaware, right?
Yes, Delaware. But he left home and shoveled snow off of rooftops in Philadelphia. So that steep pitch was something he probably remembered.
Oh yeah.
This is a piece of the original eave trim. And some of it had to be replaced. I don't believe all of it was, but this is part of the original trim. This is a brick from the building he built just before the house. And that's at 5th and Main. and it's still there. It was built in 1890. And we have many buildings around on Main Street that are old and that have been preserved. There's many of us preservationists in town.
Oh yeah, that's really a cool thing. But
and then this last item is a bank that was made to sell in order to obtain donations. You know, you come in, you buy a bank, has a little slot in it, and that would be what you get for, I don't know how much, but a few dollars.
But, well, you know, it's funny. We were actually talking earlier about possible other events in the house, and we were just thinking about what about a murder mystery tour, you know, which are a lot of fun.
Oh yes, I've approached melon patch players about perhaps having one of those in the house, and it would be fun. It would be like a sit-down dinner, and we'd have to limit the size, of course, so they might want to do more than one performance. But anyway, then a murder mystery would reveal itself, and they'd try to figure out who the murderer was.
Oh yeah.
So it would be a lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun, because I've actually been in one of them, and they are a lot of fun. But anyway, what can you give us any sort of idea of what kind of program you're going to do next month for us?
Well, it'd be quite similar, but I may have more artifacts I can bring. And I also want to start with a history of our first settler and how it worked down to be called Leesburg and how Mr. Mote arrived here and all that sort of stuff. So they get a better idea of the history of our area.
Yeah. And actually there are a lot of books and things in the library. Like for instance, one of the things you could find is you can actually see the motes in the 1885 Florida census, which we have on a database at the library. And there are, of course, books about Leesburg, books about Lake County. So if you want to know more, we also have city directories, especially old ones. We have 1924, 25, and 1939, and from about the 1950s on. So there's quite a few city directories that have the house in its old location and who was there at the time.
I might mention my book. I will have a book coming out, Bobby Grenier and I, on the 8th of July, and it's an Images of America Leesburg, and it will have many pictures of old Leesburg with, you know, the captions under the pictures. So you might want to look for that, because the motes are in that too.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I know, and you know, rest assured, the library will have them. We have actually that whole set for all of the cities in Lake County that's already been done. So we will definitely have Leesburg. But do you have any final words about the future of the house and things you'd like to see, or you know, things that you know you can do?
Well, this program has kind of instigated some action, and I have spoken with the city manager, and they are going to have a person, an engineer, you know, a company survey the house to see what needs to be done. And then they're going to try for grants. We're going to try for some donations from the citizens, or maybe from local groups such as the Kiwanis and everything, because it's been 17 years since it was restored. And so naturally anything needs work after that period of time, and so there are some things that need to be done. You know, it doesn't have anything to do with the plumbing or electricity or anything, just, you know, the general maintenance of the house.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm rather glad that we started doing this, because it has the ball rolling.
Okay. Well, you know, if we've whetted your appetite about the Mote-Morris house and about the program next month, I should tell you when it will be. And Gloria Ann is going to be a speaker, and my supervisor, Carol Anderson, will be on hand as well. And it's going to be Tuesday, July 16th, 2013, of course, from 2 to 3:30 p.m. So there's a good long time everyone will have to enjoy and see the artifacts and talk with Gloria Ann more about the house. But anyway, it's going to be in Meeting Room A, and if you have any questions, just call us at 352-728-9790, and we'll be glad to answer all of your questions. So, on behalf of the Leesburg Public Library and thanking Gloria Ann Foz, that is it for today. Thank you.